All right. Flashing.
What does it say?
So I think it's on. Red dot.
Red dot. If the red dot is in the
Flashing red
corner,
light.
it's going.
All right. So I guess it makes me wonder, like, I just remember you being pretty conservative, Mormon,
That's true.
at
Yeah.
least junior high, maybe high school as well. And I know you said like you weren't out, but you knew who you were. So what was that transition like?
That's that's interesting. Yes. So, for the longest time, I was Mormon and I was really devout, and it's an incredibly conservative religion, and I think for me it was community, and it provided this place where I felt like I was really special because I was, there was something comforting in being so devoted to something, right? And being like you said, you had mentioned like being the good Christian, like I was like a good Mormon, like I did everything right, and was like a leader in my church and a leader amongst my friends and part of like the deacons quorum president or this or that or the other like office of the church. And that made me feel special and wanted and important. I think it made me feel important. And that entire time, though, I knew I was gay, and not just gay, but like sexually active. And so it was kind of constantly living a lie, and I mean, really, very much just living a lie. And that kind of like ate at me and ate at me and ate at me. And finally, I hit that age where for me, it kind of coincides with being able to drive, because I got my driver's license, and that gave me alone time, because I could get in the car and drive around and around and around, just drive for hours. And I still remember exactly where I was. I was driving around Draper Lake by myself, and I was like, Taylor, I'm just talking to myself, and I'm like, I had already started questioning, like, well, God wouldn't have made me, like, if this is all part of God's plan, he wouldn't have made me gay because it's so hard to stop. Like, I can't stop, and I've tried, and I prayed, and so I think this is who I am. And then I was like, and then I had this, it was such this crazy moment where I was like, and also, I don't even believe in God. And I was like, wait a minute, can I say that? Can I say that out loud? And I'm alone in my car, riding around Draper Lake, and I'm like, I don't believe in God. I don't believe that Joseph Smith, was visited by an angel and was told where the plates were. I don't believe that. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in that. And so who cares if I'm gay? Because, fuck you. Who cares? Who cares? And that was the moment I started coming out to all my friends. Stopped going to church. I left, and I've never really looked back, and have been a lot happier since then. Obviously, we're all unhappy about things every now and then, but it has nothing to do with leaving the church.
Right.
So that was kind of like, and that was probably, that was probably when I was like 17 or 18, or it was 16 or 17. So my junior year, going into my senior year of school, and from there, that just it opened up. It just gave me like this sense of freedom. Like I didn't have to believe any specific thing. I could really just kind of blossom as a person and understand my sexuality and understand like my place in the world and how it made me, and then kind of like became the thing that in some ways that became the thing that felt special and different and important. Like I was like, well, at least now I have something that I have to fight for,
yeah.
Right? Fight for rights, fight for recognition, and so that kind of like fight for civil rights, which then branched out into women's rights and rights for minorities and just a number of things that fall under civil liberties. That kind of like fight for civil liberties for everybody became the thing that filled like that need for a devotion to something in my life. So I didn't need to go to church because then I had this other thing that could be that I could be passionate about and fight for. That's kind of what that transition was from ultra conservative Republican Mormon to ultra liberal thinking human being. Essentially.
Well, how, and maybe you don't want to put this on a video, I don't know, but how was that with the people closest to you?
It was fine actually. I mean, my mom was not really like a great Mormon. Like my mom is like pagan now, so she completely went a different route. It was hard for my dad at first, but my dad really loves me, and he's come around. And even at the time, my dad was just confused because my dad really wasn't like conservative the way that I was at all. He just kind of wanted me to be happy, and I think he saw that things were changing, and so he stopped me one time and he said, like, what is going on in your world? Like, everything is different. You don't go to church anymore. You're hanging out with different friends. Like, I just want to know what's going on. And I was like, I'm gay. The Color Purple was on television. It was Saturday. We were watching The Color Purple on TV in the middle of the day. And I came out to him while The Color Purple was on television. I'm gay. And he's like, you're gay? Yes. Okay. And then he like didn't say that word again. But I got married last September. Like my 1-year wedding anniversary is in a week, and my dad was at my wedding and was like singing along and cheering, and I think I might have even saw him cry when we did our vows. So like it's come a long way.
Yeah.
And my friends. I quickly found another group of friends that were like, kind of like these girls that were sort of like my, like help ease me into that world of being like, an outsider. And then like, I became friends with a lot of, like kind of like the goth kids, like the kids that were already outsider for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I fit in nicely in that world. And my Mormon friends were actually really cool about it too. I mean, Pete Brown, who you mentioned, is like one of the most liberal Mormons you'll ever meet. So nobody ever like shunned me or anything like that. It just never happened. They had other things to worry about.
Yeah.
Honestly, they had other things to worry about, and I don't know. In some ways, we're so lucky, like our generation, and then your kids' generation, even though you mentioned you live in a racist town, and obviously that's awful.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, like, for a lot of these issues, like, people our age, and then your kids that are your children's age, it's just a completely different issue.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different issue.
It's not even an issue.
It's not an issue. They grow up knowing people who are gay. They grow up knowing people who are transgender or this or that. So it wasn't. To answer your question, it wasn't. I mean, everybody, it was an adjustment for people, but I was really lucky.
Yeah.
I was really lucky. I heard stories. I have friends who came out at Moore High School that were not lucky that way. Who were kicked out of their homes. She had friends who were homeless for a while because their parents were pastors, and being gay was worse than worshiping the devil, practically. Right. Or it was the same thing as worshiping the devil, essentially. So they were kicked out of their homes. I knew kids whose parents beat them. Like, I got really lucky. Really lucky. Did not have all my friends pretty much accepted it, and you know, I was already leaving a religious community. Like I already stopped doing all that, like going to Wednesday night, you know, youth group and going to church on Sundays. So I was already exiting that community. I wasn't kicked out. I was choosing to stop going.
Yeah.
Whereas I think some people are kicked out of all the communities that they know.
Yeah.
And find comfort in. So.
Man. Well, what an interesting thing. You kind of brought it up with Pete, but one of the, I think, interesting relationships that I still maintain with a lot of people are the people who haven't completely left, you know, their religious community or whatever, but they're as progressive liberal as you could possibly be. Like, what do you think about that?
I think they're changing their own communities from within, or they're a beacon within their community for like, here's a way that you can practice this that's, you know, really fair and giving and loving toward everybody. You know, I can't claim to understand it because I left, and I don't have a fundamental belief. I don't have the actual like testimony of God or the actual belief in it. So I can't answer that question for you know, on a number of different levels. In terms of like how they exist within their community, my feeling is, like I said, I think they work as kind of beacons within the community, and they change the community from within. By being an example of how you can practice your faith without hurting others, you know, or denying them rights.
Yeah, I mean, I think about like so you probably saw, but at the DNC, Reverend Barber, who is from, I think, Charlotte, but he started the whole Moral Monday thing in North Carolina. So he's this, you know, old school Black Baptist preacher. And he's one of those guys that is really, he's like, no, this is what Christianity is supposed to be about. Yeah. So a lot of these, you know, especially since HB2, there's been a lot of involvement from progressive, liberal, religious groups protesting it. It's almost like they're leading it. Yeah. Like, I wonder, did you live in California when Proposition 8 passed?
Yeah. Trying to think of how it worked. I mean, yes, I was there when the debate was happening, and was living there when it passed, because I was trying to remember which one was yes and which one was no, honestly. Because California just like there's so many propositions for everything. Yeah. But I remember when marriage equality was denied, and it was like, because it coincided with Barack Obama being elected. Right. Which was very strange. And there's a lot of different ways that people, you know, there's a lot of different theories about how that happened and what happened with voter turnout and how exactly it happened that Prop 8 passed. And it was a sad day. It really was. I did not for a second think that it was going to remain the law of California, Prop 8, because it just doesn't pass constitutional muster for me. And I knew that it didn't. And so to me, I knew that was just a step. It's funny because at the time of Proposition 8, I really didn't care about gay marriage. I really didn't. Like, I was never planning to get gay married. And I didn't. I thought kind of marriage was just like a little bit of a sham anyway. And I was like, well, if you don't want, fuck it. If you don't want us in on your institution, then screw you. Keep your institution. I don't care. Right. It really wasn't until I actually, you know, fell in love with somebody and wanted to marry them that I was suddenly like, oh, actually, we do need the right to marry.
Yeah, and it's the whole.
But for a long time, I really didn't care. Like when Prop 8 was, when that was going on, it really didn't. I didn't go out to the rallies. I didn't like. I was not a huge like fighter for Prop 8. I really wasn't. It didn't feel like it affected me. You know, I regret that now. With time, and certainly became a part of the movement and fight for marriage equality when it finally did become very personal. Which is, you know, like I hate to admit that it's like it's not until it became personal that I started fighting or that I started caring about it, because there's plenty of other things that are not personally like you know, reproductive rights, obviously not personally important to me in the sense that they will stop me from you know, having an abortion or something like that personally, but it's very important to me. That's something that I've always fought for. Prison right, like you know, prisoners' rights, restorative justice. Those are things that are very important to me. But gay marriage, for whatever reason, even though it should have affected me, it should have been something that I was fighting for. It did not become an issue for me until I was like ready to get married.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh yeah, marriage rights.
Yeah, and I mean it's that empathy gap. It's that we all have it to some degree because we're not trying to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, like, and you know, it's the same thing with like me just not even considering like what does it mean to be gay in general. Like it just wasn't something I thought about until I was really put in a situation where I had to think about it and go, oh, like if someone told me you can't get married, and I'd be like, what the like, no.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yeah.
And then it becomes real. Real.
Yeah. Well, anywho, I think that'll do it.
All right.